haven't gone 5 years without a headache. I'm so fatigued that I take a nap on my 15-minute break at work in my car. My knees and joints and my ankles and toes are so painful when I wake up in the morning that I have to hold on to the wall like a little old lady to get to the shower. My hands are so weak that I can't hold on to my phone sometimes. My stomach hurts so bad that I get pressure in my chest that leaves me laying awake at night wondering if I'm going to die of a heart attack if I fall asleep. These aren't fake symptoms. These aren't in your head, and they weren't in mine either. Those were my symptoms. That was my journal entry from 2014. Before I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, I knew something was wrong. I saw my doctor, who is wonderful, and was looking for answers several times. I had numerous imaging tests done, ultrasounds, MRIs, CT scans, lab work upon lab work upon lab work. My thyroid tests were normal, or so we thought. After several years, we finally decided to test my thyroid antibodies, and it came back that my thyroid was under attack by my own body. My thyroid levels were within normal lab limits, but at a 5.2, I thought I probably needed to be in the hospital because I was so weak and in so much pain and so exhausted. Those symptoms were not the problem. The problem was what was happening inside my body, creating those symptoms. If you think of your body like a vehicle, if your check engine light comes on and is flashing bright red, would you just throw a sticker over the top of it so that you couldn't see it flashing? Some of you might. It's probably not the best way to deal with it. Just like getting in a Facebook group and trying one thing after another that worked for someone else is probably not the best option for you. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I was a nurse practitioner when I was having symptoms. I had training. I had been a nurse for 15 years. So I knew the medical system, I knew the body, I knew anatomy and physiology, and somewhere in my mind I thought thyroid. But when my lab was normal, I thought, well, my thyroid's fine. The reality is, in traditional medicine, we don't treat the body as an entire unit. We treat each symptom and each system separately. And that is why women are left to suffer in silence, wondering if the things that they're experiencing are all in their head. Ladies, I'm here to tell you, your symptoms are not in your head. And doing the DIY route will take years to find what works for you. The reality is that there are several root causes, and what works for one person may not work for another. So we need to look at you as a whole person, mind, body, and spirit, and figure out what it is that will make your check engine light go off. We will not just fix the check engine light. We will actually get into the engine and figure out what the problem is. I'm going to spend the next several episodes talking to you about symptoms, the engine light, versus root cause, the engine. What makes your body respond the way it does, and what do we do about it? Traditionally in medicine, we look at every symptom as an individual part. We take a nap for the fatigue. We take antacids for the tummy aches. We eat ibuprofen like candy for joint pains, and we see a doctor for every different system. For tummy ache, we see GI. For body pain, we see rheumatology. For headaches, we see neurology. For skin, we see dermatology. But the reality is all of these things are connected. We begin to question ourselves and wonder if we're making these symptoms up. And our friends and our family also become frustrated because they don't understand how we can look normal and yet feel so alone and sick. What we need to focus on, rather than each symptom independently, is how our body works together. What is happening inside of us that is making these symptoms come to the forefront? And what is causing this? In order to heal, we must address the underlying triggers, interferences, and inflammation. Collectively, these things are known as root cause. And everybody who has symptoms like this needs to know what their root cause interferences, and triggers are. Mine may not be the same as yours. For me, I've found that stress, soy, and tomatoes, my beloved tomato sauce, and Italian pasta, and my 32-ounce a day Dr. Pepper habit were what was wreaking havoc on my body. This is not a process that took me a few minutes to figure out. This is years and years of working with myself and with different ideas and finding all the things I could find in the different groups and reading all the books and reading all the scientific literature and finding a plan and a path that worked for me. I got so tired in my practice of women coming to me with these symptoms where I could pick up just like that what we were dealing with and find out that they'd been suffering for years and years. We have to do better. We can do better. And together we will do better for you. Today, I want to focus on what I consider to be the most prevalent and most pervasive root cause for women in today's society. What do you think that is? When I tell you, the answer is going to seem so obvious. It's stress. Stress is the answer, and it is never ending. It is the first, and I believe the most prevalent underlying root cause for women and the symptoms that we experience. I don't believe for 1 second that one woman in this world is not profoundly and innately affected by the stress of day-to-day life. Stress is not just what we normally think of. It's not big events. It's not horrifying trauma. Stress is the day-to-day life that we live. Dr. Aviva Romm, one of my favorite experts in the thyroid and natural medicine world, defines stress as anything that overwhelms your body and its capacity to respond effectively to the challenges that you are exposed to. According to the annual stress survey by the American Psychological Society, 75% of women experience moderate to severe stress. Raise your hand if that's you. It's definitely me. 49% of women report sleep problems associated with stress. Also me. And more than 40% of women report physical symptoms as a direct result of stress. So many women that I talk to are already doing everything right. They're counting the calories, they're going to the gym, they're eating clean, and they cannot seem to get the results that they're looking for. And when they come to me, they are so frustrated because they've done everything they know to do. They take their thyroid medicine regularly, they're doing all the things right. And when I tell them that the things you're doing are actually causing more harm because it's creating stress in your body, it's as though a light bulb goes off. We need to calm our bodies down before any of those other things can work. We have all certainly experienced a stress response. We feel a rapid heartbeat, heavy breathing, or holding our breath, cold sweat, clenched hands, a heightened sense of awareness of our surroundings, and a quick startle reflex. You might have experienced this when you feel like someone is following you in a store, or, more likely, when the blue and red lights are behind you in the car. These feelings tell us that our fight or flight response has been activated. When your brain detects a real, potential, or perceived threat, your adrenal glands receive the distress signal and begin pumping out adrenaline, which you've undoubtedly heard of and experienced. Under the influence of adrenaline, your heart will race to get more blood and oxygen to your muscles to run or fight. Your respiratory passages allow more oxygen to fuel your response. Your blood vessels constrict, increasing your blood pressure to infuse your brain and your muscles with more oxygen. Your immune system activates cytokines, which are inflammatory messenger chemicals, and germ-fighting cells to fight off and protect you in the event of an injury or an infection. Your pupils dilate so you can see in the dark. Your sense is heightened to create a sense of hypervigilance, and all the while, your body diverts attention and oxygen-rich blood from less essential functions like digestion and reproduction. This temporarily affects how your gut functions and moves, and creates a temporary hormone imbalance. Meanwhile, the amygdala, my favorite part of the brain because it is featured in Disney's Inside Out, where all the little characters are the emotions, that's the amygdala. Meanwhile, the amygdala is recording everything that's going on so that in the future, when you are stressed and you experience this again, you can respond faster. Your brain, what to do, your amygdala is keeping track. This is a perfectly orchestrated symphony of response that our body conducts for our protection. And some of us even love that rush of adrenaline, that roller coaster ride, that jump out of a plane, no thank you, or even just meeting someone who's cute and that we're attracted to. Adrenaline junkies live for this feeling. So if it's good and pleasurable, how is this stress the cause of so many underlying symptoms that women experience? This discussion continues to be a bit sciencey, but the short story is that our bodies no longer function how they were meant to work. Our bodies were designed to respond to short bursts of stress, not long, drawn-out episodes of stress. Cortisol, the primary glucocorticoid hormone, is stimulated by the release of adrenal corticotropin hormone, ACTH, from here on out. That comes from the pituitary gland. The word corticoid means steroid. Thus, cortisol is a steroid hormone. Just like steroids prescribed for asthma or injury, like prednisone or albuterol or betamethasone, perhaps you've heard of those, the role of cortisol in the body is primarily to keep inflammation from getting out of control. Even though cortisol is associated with stress and sometimes called the stress hormone, it's really not a villain in the body. It's actually an essential survival hormone, and it is linked to all of the other hormones' production and how they work within our body. The primary functions of cortisol are to regulate blood sugar levels, metabolize fats, carbs, and proteins, increase body fat, defend the body from infection, balance hormones, and regulate sex drive and reproduction. Cortisol is meant to be secreted by your adrenal glands in a consistent fashion. This is called the diurnal or daily rhythm, with the highest levels in the morning to give you drive and energy to get going. So it looks like a ski slope. In the morning, your cortisol levels should be high to give you energy. As the day progresses, they should start to taper, and around midnight, cortisol secretion and the amount of cortisol circulating in your blood should be at its lowest point, where you should enter rest, detoxification, and repair phases while you sleep. Slowly, your cortisol should again begin to climb and enter that new daily rhythm, diurnal rhythm. At about 7 a.m., it should peak, and you should be awake and bright and ready to face your day. The system is exquisite until it's not. In this day of living, especially coming off a pandemic that we have never experienced before, our bodies never turn off. When we don't turn off, neither does our stress response, which is where trouble begins. Instead of running in that beautiful wave, our stress levels go up, our cortisol levels stay up and up and up, and they never come back down again. Our bodies were designed to respond to short-lived stress. I can definitely see how this response and these supports would benefit me if I was out gathering berries and I was being hunted by a mountain lion. But take a minute and list 3 things that were stressful to you today. For me, this is the 3rd time I've recorded this video. I couldn't get my microphone to work. I stubbed my toe, and I was running late to work. My experiences, my frustrations are not even close to fighting off a mountain lion to save my life, but my body was prepared to respond exactly though I was fighting off a mountain lion because my microphone wasn't working. My body responded with the same intensity and bathed my brain in cortisol. Feelings such as grief, guilt, fear, anxiety, and embarrassment can be classified as stress. So can wonderful things like buying a home, bringing home a new baby, or meeting someone new. This is based on perception rather than the actual nature of stress. Even good things can trigger our fight or flight response. Situations that are new, unpredictable, that threaten our ego or cause us to feel out of control are perceived as stressful. Our bodies have become so accustomed to responding to stress that they never stop responding to it. When cortisol is consistently present rather than cycling in that diurnal rhythm, the areas responsible for hormone production and balance are disrupted. Our hormone balance, including the thyroid, are left to malfunction. Our blood sugar never stabilizes, and our metabolic processes are interrupted. Hormone balance disrupts all areas of the body, including the gut, and for many women, causes the storage and conversion of glucose into fat, because remember, cortisol is designed to store body fat for an emergency. And when cortisol is present, we slow down the oxygenation of less effective, less essential body systems, including the gut and the reproductive system. Our bodies believe we are constantly in danger because of the life we live. These imbalances diminish sex drive, dysregulate menstrual cycles, create fatigue, GI disruption, body pain, underlying inflammation, and often promote infertility and miscarriage. Overall, chronic stress and its effects are devastating for women's overall health. We tell ourselves stories about obligation, about responsibility, about expectations. We need to do this. We should volunteer for that. We should attend this party. We should eat this. We should. We should ourselves into constant overwhelm. And for most of us, overwhelm is another source of stress. And this stress does not just show up and introduce itself and say, "Hi, I'm stressed. You're stressed out. This is your problem." For some, it's going to appear as a headache, a poor appetite, overeating, nausea, diarrhea, hives or rashes, poor sleep, or absent sex drive. For others, it presents as a sadness, easy frustration, angry outburst, physical aggression, or violence. And then some can't sleep too much, experience brain fog or forgetfulness, inattention, inability to cope, home clutter, overeating, oversleeping, anorexia, insomnia, or general apathy and malaise. You can see how stress is pervasive and truly affects every single aspect of our lives. If you have a notebook, go ahead and just write down the 3 things that stressed you out today and think about how your body responds to stress and make a note of that as well. We need to learn to listen to what our body is telling us. Our body is telling us too much is too much. How many times a day do we ignore what our body is trying to tell us? We cannot avoid stress. That's just the reality of life. But still, we cannot heal our bodies until we learn to manage chronic stress and regulate our coping and our response to stressful situations. When we're stressed, we cannot heal. And I know this sounds very basic and very trite, and okay, great. If I could manage stress, I would have managed my stress a long time ago. But the reality is the information is trite. The practice is complicated and requires the support and accountability of a community and someone who is going to help you figure out exactly how your body responds to stress and exactly how to manage it, how to listen to your body and make yourself the priority that your body is begging for you to become. When you understand how your body responds to stress, you can create routines to manage that stress. By learning and practicing and making effective stress management techniques as routine as brushing your teeth, we can reduce cortisol levels, soothe our adrenal glands that are so overworked so that they function appropriately, mediate or eliminate inflammation in all body systems, and ultimately give our bodies a fighting chance at healing. We can restore function to those body systems that have become so overwhelmed that they no longer function the way they were meant to function. The words are simple. The process is not. And I encourage you to get someone who can help you create a self-care stress management toolbox sooner than later. Because throwing arrows in the dark, trying to find what is going to fix your specific overwhelm, is only going to result in more frustration and lost time. I know because I've been there. I lost 10 years of my life, and I wish someone had told me, let's do this together.